So it's been a little while since my last update, I think somewhere around about 3 months, but for good reason. I'm only on this project for a couple of days a week, so that kind of extends the development time. And between holiday season and the usual production curveball, having to update the main site and keep that ticking over smoothly, the whole classic to block theme conversion has taken a little bit of a backseat here and there. But in this episode, I'm back with a proper behind the scenes update. It's been a few months, but progress hasn't stopped, far from it. So in this video, I'll be walking through converting all of the old widgets into reusable block patterns with some nifty WP-CLI automation to handle the data migration as and when I need to. I've also rebuilt the site's search and filtering using the new WP Interactivity API. And I'll also explain some of the syncing headaches I've had to deal with when it comes to snapshots of databases and things like that. But the bit I'm most excited about to share, now that we have a staging site and a temporary URL set up, is how I'm going to be handling the bug tracking and client feedback using a tool called BugHerd. Now, if you work with clients on WordPress builds, this approach might seriously streamline your workflow, but I'll tell you more about that later in this video. So let's dive in. So why the delay? Well, what's happened since? Well, a few changes on the production site, including the client taking on a new SEO agency and getting them involved, has meant that the database has had to be cleaned up and changed slightly for the main production site or the live site that currently stands at the moment. And that affected my current data migration, or where I developed to at this point. So I've had to factor in some new conditions to ensure that we're not importing any out of date or irrelevant content into the new staging site. So the big win though, all of the old advanced custom field widgets have now been fully converted into block patterns for both standard pages and individual house posts. And that is a massive shift. We're no longer relying on any third-party plugins for layout and structure. Everything's now going to be handled natively with WordPress blocks, whether it's a page, post, or a custom post type, and in this case, for this project, for houses. So to help with this, I've written a set of shell scripts that trigger various WordPress action hooks, and these in turn will run a bunch of custom WP-CLI scripts that handle tasks like injecting header banners and titles, converting image blocks into proper gallery blocks, pulling the first image in as a thumbnail, and cleaning up any orphan or missing subpages. Now, the reason I've got this set up is that if I ever need to take a snapshot of the production database and re-import that data again, I've got all those scripts set up. And that's the best bit. I've automated the creation of supporting subpages as well as its content for each house. So now we've got dedicated child pages for availability, the gallery, things to do, and key facts per house. Now, these didn't actually exist as standalone pages previously, so SEO was pretty limited, but now each of those can be individually indexed and optimized, which is a huge win for the client. I've also finished rebuilding the search filter functionality, which is fundamentally a core part of the existing site. Now, the rebuild replicates what's going on currently on the live site, but this time it's been built using the WP Interactivity API rather than pulling in things like jQuery or other dependencies. Now, this approach keeps things native, lighter, and more maintainable in the long term. Because it's native to WordPress, I can let them look after that, and then I can just concentrate on any additional code that I need to create. Now, it is a bit of a learning curve if you're used to using more traditional JavaScript methods, but once it clicks, it is brilliant. Now, I'm using it to filter houses by taxonomy and custom meta data specifically for houses. Now, this will give the users a smoother experience when browsing for houses. Now, one of the things I'm genuinely excited to show you in this update is how I've integrated BugHerd into the workflow. As soon as the staging site was live, I got BugHerd set up so that the client could visually flag any issues directly on the site. No more spreadsheets, no Trello boards or endless email threads. Just point, click and comment right on the actual page where they found an issue. Now, I've been using BugHerd for several years, But for Kate and Tom's, we've historically relied on tools such as Trello, shared spreadsheets, and classic email chains. Now, not to knock any of those, they all have their place. But for projects like this, I find BugHerd just fits better. It's made for this kind of thing. And honestly, I think it's going to be a bit of a game changer for the client as well. They can log into the staging site, click around, and leave feedback right where there's an issue. Whether that's a missing title, or there's a layout hiccup, or something just not behaving as expected. And on my end, I get a tidy, trackable task list that's easy to prioritize without having to decode what the client actually means. Now, it's super collaborative, it's lightweight, and it just works, especially for non-technical clients who might struggle to explain exactly what the problem is. Now, I'll give you a proper look at how it all works later in this video and how it all ties together into a wider QA process. But if you're working with client websites, especially on WordPress, this is the bit that you'll definitely want to stick around for. Now, I don't know if you've ever dealt with database snapshots, but getting things in sync when you're developing a new site can get a little bit out of sync, if you get me. And this is where things got a little bit tricky. So the original database snapshot I was working on locally was pretty out of date. We're talking maybe 6 months behind the actual live site. So once the staging site went up, we quickly realized that a bunch of pages and content had changed. So what I had to do is to pull a fresh snapshot of the production site database, but that ended up breaking some of my import scripts that I'd already developed. Now I had to go back and refactor some of the logic so that it ran more sequentially and could be better adapted for updated data. It wasn't a massive rewrite, but it was enough for me to rethink making things more flexible. Now, as you know, I've been using AI to help with parts of the conversion, particularly for generating content from block patterns. But as you'd expect, it hasn't been perfect. Now, the AI can structure content nicely from my templates or my patterns, but it often misses little contextual things. For example, where there were times it didn't close a div element properly. Now, the block would look fine in the front end, but in the block editor, things were broken. It just wouldn't render the block. And you wouldn't even notice unless you stumbled across a specific house page and then tried to edit it. And that's all sorted now though. The import process is far more stable and the scripts are reusable, so for future updates or migrations, it should be much smoother. So now that we've pulled the fresh snapshot from the production database, there's always a risk that things could drift out of sync again by the time we're ready to go to launch, especially if the content keeps getting updated on the live site. And to help bridge any future gaps between dev and production, I've installed an activity changelog plugin on the live site. And this gives us a clear record of any major content or structural changes. So when it comes to go live, we can easily spot what's changed and manually sync everything that needs to be updated. It's a simple step, but one that should save us a lot of hassle later on down the line. So BugHerd, how does it actually work in practice? Well, the first things first, you'll need to create an account. So head on over to their website and you'll get a good overview of what it's capable of. There's even a demo animation to give you a feel for it. Now, I've been using it for years and genuinely rate it. But just for you, I'll drop my affiliate link below in the description, which gives you a 20% off for your first 3 months if you want to give it a try. So once you're logged in, you can start to create projects. And I've already set one up for Kate and Tom's, and you'll notice it works like a Kanban board. Really intuitive for managing tasks visually. And to get it running on your site, you've got a couple of options. Now personally, I opt for the JavaScript embed method. You just drop a snippet into your site header, and this pulls the project via an API key. Really nice and simple. Then for the magic to happen in the browser, you and your client will need to install the BugHerd browser extension. Now I'm using Firefox, so BugHerd has given me the option for the Firefox version, but it will detect and serve the right one for whatever browser you're using, for instance Chrome, Edge, etc. And don't forget the client. It's crucial that the client installs the extension too. They won't see anything otherwise. Now they don't need to worry about the code, that just runs silently in the background. As long as they've been added as a user and you can do that via email, they're good to go. And another super handy thing is that there's also a WordPress plugin version if you prefer that route. but I still tend to go with the JavaScript snippet. It's just what I'm used to, and it gives me more control, and it's one less plugin for the client to worry about. So once you've got everything hooked up, you need to add some URLs so that you can view the overlay. You can add as many URLs as you want to the project. Now I've added both a temporary staging domain and my local environment domain. That way, no matter where I'm working, BugHerd will just work. When you visit one of those URLs with the extension active, you'll see the BugHerd tab appear. That's your interface. From there, you or your client can start adding tasks directly onto the page. So as you can see, the client has already been busy adding tasks to this project. Now I can go in, click anywhere on the page, say the logo looks off, I can create an individual task directly on the page for myself. I can also assign it to the client and set the severity and slot it into any one of the Kanban columns, like to do, doing, or done. You can even customize the Kanban board, add extra columns for different workflows or collaboration stages. Once a task is complete, just archive it, clean and simple. Now you can view the tasks either via the on-page overlay or directly in BugHerd's dashboard. Everything syncs so you'll never be out of step. Now one of the features I really love is how BugHerd takes a visual snapshot of the issue and the location. It gives you pinpoint context of where on the page the task was created, which is gold dust when you're a developer. It just eliminates any confusion about where the bug is and how to access it or find its location. It also logs technical details like the user's browser, operating system, screen size, and even the HTML element that was selected. So if a client flags a mobile bug, you can dig into exactly what environment it occurs in. Really helpful for cross-browser quality assurance. So if you're working with clients and you want to simplify bug tracking and feedback, BugHerd is honestly a no-brainer. I use it on every new project and always walk a client through how it works. They love it and so do I. And like I said, if you want to try it out, use my affiliate link below to get 20% off your first 3 months. It's a great way to dip your toe in. Now, if you've got any questions about using BugHerd, do drop them in the comments below. I'd be happy to respond to them. Otherwise, happy bug tracking. What next? So with the core structure in place and the staging site now in testing, here's what I think is on my list for the next phase of development. So I need to build out the calendar availability system, which exists on the existing site. And this is all to do with the availability per house and also the rates for particular types of booking. Now this data comes in from a third-party API, so it's a kind of separate chunk of development work in its own right. Once I've done that, I then need to finalize the galleries because each house has its own photo gallery. And again, these are all in a database, and it's most likely that we're going to continue to use Jetpack's carousel. And once that's done, I need to create and populate the key facts per house. Now, I could have included this in my whole pattern conversion, or widgets to patterns, but I was aware of this, and because I've already got that in place, it should be a fairly seamless process to include those in the key facts. And in actual fact, those pages didn't exist in the old site, and now they do for SEO reasons. I now have a page that I can hook onto to then add that content, so I'm not too fussed about that. So once those final pieces are in place, we'll be on track for a launch in the next couple of months, and I'm estimating a certain amount of development days left, and spreading those out over the coming weeks, I think we'll be on target. And if I manage to wrap things up a bit sooner, even better. That will just be a nice bonus. So for now, if you're enjoying this series or you want to see more real-world WordPress development in action, especially around block themes, automation, or workflow tips, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. But for now, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.